Dear listeners, I have so much to tell you, and I often don't know where to start. It seems the world doesn't want to admit that sometimes we make mistakes, and that sometimes the wrong person gets punished for something they didn't do. Not all of us have been personally affected, but many of us have been impacted by this reality, and I feel like it's my responsibility to share these stories with you and to tell you what I've learned about wrongful convictions. Welcome back to Wrongfully Yours. Today, I'm joined by Deborah Francois, a remarkable civil rights lawyer whose career has been defined by her dedication to justice and human rights. It was early in her career that Deborah helped secure the exoneration of Clifford Jones, a man who had spent 29 years in prison for a rape, murder, and robbery that he hadn't committed until DNA evidence proved his innocence. Since then, she's continued to focus her practice on wrongful conviction cases. She played an integral role in the exonerations of Muhammad A. Aziz and Khalil Islam in 2021, the two men who had been wrongfully convicted of killing Malcolm X. She was also central in securing James Irons' exoneration in 2022. Mr. Irons had been wrongfully convicted in the notorious Money Train case in New York City. In addition to her wrongful conviction work, Deborah has built extensive trial and appellate experience across a wide range of civil rights litigation, including cases of police misconduct and discrimination. Her career is a powerful testament to how advocacy, perseverance, and courage can not only free individuals from wrongful imprisonment, but also push us to re-examine and ultimately reshape our understanding of justice itself. So today, this is a conversation about the pursuit of justice, the systemic failures that allow wrongful convictions to happen, and the ongoing work of building a fairer, more accountable justice system. So, welcome, Deborah. I am so appreciative that you've taken the time to speak with us today because I can only imagine how demanding your work is. But I have to say, I'm really interested in hearing your perspective because now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I understand correctly, as a civil rights attorney, you represent individuals in post conviction litigation to get their convictions vacated, and then you assist them with filing civil lawsuits in the aims of receiving monetary compensation.
Exactly. So there are times when we will work with folks who have already been exonerated, but for the most part, we can start even way earlier than that, where we'll have someone reach out to us and we're actually helping them with the investigation portion just to get all the evidence together so that we could try to seek to vacate their convictions. And then once we get that set, then we'll work with them in filing civil lawsuits to seek monetary compensation for themselves.
That's that's amazing. This is like a whole other side.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to get into like what your work looks like. But before we jump into that, I have to ask you, how did you get involved in this crazy world of wrongful conviction? Was it something that was always a driving passion of yours, or did you just kind of fall into it? Or
I fell into it. I didn't even really know that the wrongful conviction world existed. And I think that that's a big problem with the wrongful conviction world. There are a lot of people who don't know about it.
I was like, okay, good. I'm not the
Oh,
only one because
oh yeah, 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 yeah. No.
because I feel like I just kind of fell into it.
Yeah,
And I mean, now it's a passion, a calling, a drive, call it whatever you will.
of
But
course.
like you, the first time I heard of it, I was like, this is fake news. Like, this can't be real.
Yeah, so I found out about it first. Well, I wanted to be a lawyer for a really long time, ever since I was a young kid. I knew I wanted to go into somewhere in the public interest world. I actually thought I was going to go more in the human rights international law world.
Sure.
Then it turned to like more domestic issues. But I actually started my career in a corporate law firm
Oh,
at an international law firm in New York called Cleary Gottlieb. I joined the firm for various reasons. I did know that I wanted to go back to public interest work at some point after working there for a few years. But one of the many reasons I joined the firm, Cleary Gottlieb, was because of its strong commitment to pro bono work. So
Got
while
it.
I was there, I got to work on various pro bono work, but it wasn't like I went there saying, I know that I want to do wrongful conviction work and that's what I'm going to work on while I'm here so that I could easily transition out. No, far from it. I was doing a bunch of different public interest work issues, including, police excessive force, immigration rights, all sorts of those things. And I just happened to get staffed on this case where we were representing someone named Clifford Jones. Clifford Jones was someone who had been convicted back in 1981 of a murder, rape, and robbery that he did not commit. And 1981, this is the time before DNA evidence wasn't,
Sure.
right? So he gets convicted based solely on the testimony of a single eyewitness, which was the rape victim who admitted to being under the influence of heroin at the time that she had identified him in a photo array and lineup done months after the incident.
Good.
Yep. So, I mean, in that one sentence alone, let's unpack everything that went wrong.
I was just gonna say, that's a lot to
That's a
unpack
lot.
in that one sentence.
Yeah, yeah. So there was no physical evidence presented against him. You have a faulty identification, a misidentification by
Sure.
someone who testified under oath that she had been impaired by heroin when she made the identification, but he gets convicted. Clifford Jones, as a black man in 1980s New York, you can imagine
Say no
there are a
more.
lot of, yep, exactly. There are a lot of things against him. So he gets convicted. He maintain his innocence the entire time. He fights and fights and fights for decades. And finally, my firm at the time, Cleary Gottlieb, we got connected to Clifford. He ended up spending almost 30 years in prison before we were
Oh,
able to, yeah, 30 years, 30
oh.
years, 30 years. I
And
mean,
I always like to just play this mental exercise.
yeah,
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
no, of course.
But so he's convicted in 1981, you say?
Yep.
So 30 years. We're now fast forward. I'm so bad at math. What is that? 2011? How much did the world change
Yeah,
between 81 and 2011? Like you go into prison in one world
yeah,
and you're coming out and it's almost like like I can only imagine, God forbid I ever have to experience this, but like you go in and it's almost like a sci-fi movie that you
yes,
come out and the world is completely different.
yeah,
It spun fast and
yeah,
you're locked in a cage and you have no idea what's going on outside.
yep, yep.
Anyways, I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off, but just
No.
like that realization of 30 years is
Yeah.
a long time.
I think it's actually important. I'm glad you cut me off because I think we do have to pause at times
Yeah.
and let these numbers sink in because so many times they are reduced to these numbers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I understand some of it is just like the way that the cases go, but so many times we'll be like 1981 murder, 30 years. Okay, and bam, bam, bam. But I mean, think
Well,
about
to be fair, it's probably like 1981 murder, 30 years. Wow, that's a really long time. The end, move
yes,
on.
yes. I
Right?
mean,
Like, you'll have that flash of like, wow, that really sucks.
yep.
But I don't think you realize how much, and I play this game with my students when I teach my wrongful convictions class because one of my good friends who has now passed until recently was Canada's longest serving wrongfully convicted person.
Oh my
And
goodness.
he spent 32 years and he went
Yep.
in 1972, came out in, 2000 whatever, and I'm like, "Okay, A, that's longer than any of you, my students, have been alive."
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm like, "So you don't necessarily know, but let's just think of all the things that happened, right? Like
Yeah.
bananas."
Yeah. It's funny how you said, not funny, it's, interesting that you talked about it being like a sci-fi film because I've often thought of it similarly and how it feels like you're time traveling.
Yes.
Come back in just basic things like the internet.
Yeah.
Email was a thing. We have this phone that now can take pictures and record things, and you have a calculator and all these things.
Well, it's like that meme that has the pile of the books, the television, the camera, the everything. And you're like, and all of that fits in the palm of your hand.
Yep.
And like everything, they would have had the whole Encyclopedia Britannica set and, maybe VHS player,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
right? And you probably had an 8-track player,
Yeah.
and now we're onto MP3s, and people are like, "I don't even know what that means. Like, why are you just spitting letters and numbers out to me?" Like, now you're speaking a whole different language.
Mhm.
And Bluetooth. I hear so many exonerees telling me they came out and they're like, "I thought people had gone crazy because 'cause they're walking down the street talking to themselves." Not realizing, oh, they're actually having conversation on their phone without even really holding their phone,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's
Yeah.
so sci-fi. I'm sure they're waiting for the flying cars to go
Yep.
by,
Yep. And I mean, now we have cars that are driving themselves. It is a sci-fi film. It is actually.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, all that to say,
Mhm.
Clifford Jones gone for a really long
Yeah.
time, and how did you get onto this case?
So at my firm, they knew I was very committed to pro bono work. They knew I really want to work on it. And there was a fantastic partner, Breon Peace. He's amazing. He was one of the partners who really, really was dedicated to this type of work and was like, we're at a corporate law firm and yeah, we're making a lot of money. But guess what? That means that we have a duty to help others who don't have a lot of money. So,
Incredible.
yeah, so I got lucky. I got staffed on the case. I was a junior lawyer at the time. And honestly, it was amazing where all the different hats I got to wear. So at
Sure.
this time, we my firm had actually been working with Clifford maybe for 7 or 8 years by the time I joined the case.
Wow.
There were all sorts of procedural twists and turns by the time I had even gotten to the case. We got in the case and we are still in the investigative process, still in the investigative stage where we're just trying to gather all any evidence to show that our client is innocent. We had an extremely lucky break, and it turned out that all the way back then in 1980s, whatever, the prosecutor who had worked on the case had retrieved hair samples from the hat that the perpetrator had left at the scene while fleeing.
Oh,
Yes,
not disclosed?
not disclosed, kept it
Of
in his
course.
files, kept it just in his files. And I don't even
'Cause, why would you need that at
Um,
all,
yeah, right, and at the
right?
time, I mean, they didn't know what to do with it, right? Again,
Yeah,
there's no DNA testing then.
sure.
So, and then in addition, the chief medical examiner's office also did have fingernail scrapings of the homicide victim because I should explain. So the perpetrator, after raping the woman who survived, was fleeing the scene, and in the course of fleeing a scene, killed her neighbor.
Oh
So you
my.
had two victims. Yeah, you had the rape victim and then you had the murder victim. So and the perpetrator left the hat. They recovered hair samples from the hat, and they also recovered fingernail scrapings from the homicide victim. But
Okay,
again, 1981. There's not much you can do.
sure.
Fortunately, we were able to get the hair samples, the fingernail scrapings, and test it. The samples had obviously been extremely degraded because of the time that passed, and also it's not like the hair samples had been properly preserved. Uh,
Not that they knew how to preserve them because what are we preserving these for anyways? Like, it's amazing that they were even still available.
Oh, we were incredibly lucky. And I mean, I think that's another running theme that goes through a lot of wrongful conviction work, luck. Because for every exoneree you meet, there are hundreds of other people who are still incarcerated, hundreds of other people who maybe got out of parole, but their conviction still stands. So there's a
Yes.
lot of luck involved in this, a lot of luck. Yeah.
Again, aside, I just wanna say I am so thankful that you say that because I just defended my PhD, and I had a whole chapter on luck
Yes.
being this
Yes.
important factor in wrongful convictions. Needless to say, my committee was less than enthusiastic about this chapter, and I'm like, but every lawyer that I interviewed,
Mhm,
every one of them
mhm,
made mention of luck, and I'm like, I can't not bring it up
mhm.
if they're all talking about it. And now again, completely unsolicited, you're saying luck is a huge issue, which is terrifying to me that sometimes your freedom comes down to luck.
Yeah, right.
Fortune, serendipity, call it what you will.
Exactly. Like, were you lucky that there happened to be some evidence preserved from your case? Were you lucky that a lawyer who wasn't extremely tired got your letter and was able to read it and had the bandwidth to take your case? Were you
Right?
lucky that the witnesses from your case were still alive and willing to speak to your lawyers? There's a lot of luck involved. There's a lot of luck involved.
100%. Yeah.
So, yeah, so and, it's weird to also say it luck because Clifford, he wasn't lucky. He spent 30 years in,
Right?
right? It's a
Yeah.
weird word to use, but he got a break in a
There
period
you go.
that was incredibly awful. So, yeah, we get this evidence, and then even then, the Manhattan DA's office fought us tooth and nail. Finally, though, when we presented them with the DNA testing, they agreed. They were like, okay, we're going to join you. We agreed to join you
Wow.
in this and file a joint motion to vacate Clifford's conviction based on this newly discovered DNA evidence. And in 2016, Clifford was able to finally tell everyone what he's already known, that he's an innocent man. So,
Wow.
long, long journey.
No kidding. No kidding. And that, I think, speaks volumes to the world of wrongful convictions because it's not like in the movies where it's like, "Oh, I don't like the verdict, so I'm gonna appeal," and then tomorrow, like, it's overturned and everybody lives happily ever after. Like, I mean, not everybody spends 30 years in prison.
Mhm.
But more often than not, and I'm not a lawyer, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but more often than not, they're gonna spend close to 30 years fighting to prove their innocence. Like, even if they're not in prison for 30 years,
Mhm.
that's not the end of the journey.
No, it's not. And honestly, even after exonerated, it's not the end of the road because then you're dealing with all the trauma of the wrongful conviction and years of imprisonment. I talk about Clifford Jones, who spent 30 years. I mean, another case. Let's talk about historical wrongful convictions that took forever. I At my current firm, so I am in a law firm, Shanus Law Office now. We are a boutique civil rights firm where one of our main areas of focus is wrongful conviction work. So
Okay.
the corporate law world around, and this is now 100% of my work. We represent Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam, the two men who were wrongfully convicted of assassinating Malcolm X. It took 55 years to clear their names.
Wow.
55 years. So I mean, and again, there are many others, I'm sure, who have spent decades who are waiting and waiting and waiting. So when I say that I have experience taking cases that are long journeys and that take a really lot of effort, it's not an understatement.
No kidding. 55 years. Okay, so again, not being a lawyer, what takes so long?
Denial on the part of
Mm,
the prosecutor's offices, procedural hurdles. You have to, before you can get post conviction relief, like you mentioned, you have to do, in the US, you have to do direct appeals, right? So you have like all these steps you got to take before you can do it. And then
right.
there are just some difficulties with just proving the case. The case of Muhammad and Khalil is exceptionally unique in many ways, right? So they
Sure.
were convicted in 1966 for the 1965 murder. Muhammad spent 20 years, Khalil spent 22 years before they were both released on parole. So they did get out on parole and they spent the later years of their life out, but their conviction still stood and
Sure.
they had to carry the stigma of murdering one of the most beloved civil rights activists in the world, right? So
Right. Yeah.
it wasn't just them who suffered, it was their family, it was their friends, it was their entire community.
Well,
So
it was arguably the entire civil rights community movement. Like it extend, and this is the thing about wrongful convictions, it's the ripple effect, right? Like
mhm,
it extends so much further than just the people who are wrongfully convicted. And that's not to belittle their experience in any way, shape, or form. It's really to bring attention to the fact of how big these problems are.
yeah, yep. And, going back to the theme of denial, that played a huge role in Muhammad and Khalil's case because when they were convicted in 1966, the one of the actual killers of Malcolm X was tried with them. So there were three of them who were tried for the murder of Malcolm X. The third man, Mujahid Abdul Halim, he had been caught at the scene. He had been caught at the scene at the Audubon Ballroom where Malcolm X was assassinated. He had ballistics evidence on him. People knew it was him. There was no way of denying it was him.
Right.
He took the stand at trial. He first denied his guilt and said he's innocent. But then when he saw that my clients were going to be convicted, he retook the stand and said, wait, I am going to admit I was involved. I was involved in the assassination of Malcolm X. These two men are innocent. So there was from day one. I mean, yeah, he retook the stand and they
Wow.
still convicted. And part of that was because the FBI had evidence of my client's innocence from within 24 hours after the murder of Malcolm X, but they buried that information. And they continued denying and denying and denying, denying at trial, denying in the years after. And Muhammad and Khalil tried to fight for their name. And they did that all through the years until finally they were exonerated in 2021.
Unbelievable. And to think, I mean, I'm not American, so maybe my view of the FBI is romanticized by Hollywood, but I would think that the FBI is held to a little bit higher standard as a police agency, that you would assume that there's a little more integrity. And then to hear stuff like this, it's mortifying. Like, it just shatters worldviews. And you think, wow, it really can present itself anywhere.
Yeah.
The tunnel vision, the bias, just the noble cause, corruption to a certain extent, like just all of the key things associated with wrongful convictions. And that's just absolutely, I don't even have a word.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. It's difficult to put it in words. And I mean, you have to keep in mind the context of what the FBI was at this time. This was the FBI under J.
Sure.
Hoover,
Right.
was the era of the US counterintelligence program. This was an era when they were targeting any Black activist group that was perceived to be a threat to national security. So I like to
Sure.
believe that. I hope that this would not happen at this day and age, but certainly was a perfect storm back at that time when
Yeah.
Black men like Muhammad and Khalil were being targeted. And the FBI was having this nationwide surveillance program targeting men precisely like them. They wanted to hide evidence of Muhammad and Khalil's innocence because to disclose that innocence would have meant that they would have had to reveal the depth and breadth of their own counterintelligence program.
Uh, so there's like a hidden agenda to
Yes.
all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do not want this interpreted in any way, shape, or form that I'm speaking against the FBI. But when you say we would hope that today this would never happen, and this is not a pointed comment to the FBI, we know for a fact that wrongful convictions continue today for these same reasons. So I too would hope that it wouldn't happen via the FBI, but we can't say that it's not ever gonna happen again, because wouldn't that be a lovely world that we live in?
Exactly. That
If
happened in 1965. It's happening 2025. The unfortunate
Yeah,
reality is that it's continuing. And as much as there are people in the community who even acknowledge that wrongful convictions are a thing, there are many others who don't. And other times, sometimes you have the very nefarious cases where you have official misconduct that's deliberate. Other times, it's not even that. I have
sure.
cases
Yeah,
right, where the cops, I don't even know that they realize how much confirmation bias is going on. You mentioned tunnel vision earlier, and
yep,
that's what happens too. Another
yep,
theme that runs in wrongful conviction work is you really realize how fragile the human mind is and how
yes,
that can lead to errors that were not even intentional, whether it's on the part of the police and prosecutors who are engaging in so much tunnel vision and confirmation bias that they can't actually see the truth, or whether it's the eyewitness who did not actually observe what they're so convinced that they observed. So
yep.
even if there isn't malintent, there is a lot of human error that can go into play in these types of cases.
Yes, absolutely, and that is one of the key points that I drive home to my students when I'm teaching my wrongful convictions course. And I see that we're just about at time for today, and I thank you so much for taking the time with speaking with me. I feel like there are so many more questions that I have for you, and I'm hoping that you would come back to join me again next time so we can kind of pick up and carry on from today's conversation.
Of course, I'd love to.
A huge thank you to Deborah for sharing not only her legal expertise, but her honesty about the challenges, the heartbreak, and the rare but powerful victories in this work. What struck me most in this conversation is the reminder that wrongful convictions aren't just stories of individual tragedy. They're stories of communities, of movements, and of history that is forever altered. As Deborah shared, the fight to expose the truth is long and often unbearably so. But lawyers like Deborah show us that persistence, courage, and humanity can make a difference and right a wrong. And while today's letter may have piqued your interest, this is only part of the story. There's still so much more to tell. The effects of wrongful convictions are far reaching. They touch us all. I'll write to you again soon as I continue my conversations with those whose lives have been impacted by a wrongful conviction. But until then, I remain wrongfully yours. And if today's episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it with others, liking and following the podcast on your favorite platforms so you don't miss what comes next. And as always, thank you for listening to Wrongfully Yours, where we believe that telling these stories is the first step towards preventing the next injustice. And until next time, stay curious, stay hopeful, and keep fighting for justice. If you have something that you want to talk about with me, or even if you want to just send me some words of encouragement, you can drop me a line at wrongfullyyourspodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out my website, kellylozon.ca, for more information about me and the kinds of things that I do.